Mr. Ben Shapiro. Welcome.
How you doing?
Well, I found something out, and I don't think this is true. You would have said something about it, but I don't want to ambush you here. But I've heard that you're Jewish. Is that true?
Well, I can't believe you can't believe everything you hear. What?
Look at how he's stumbling around this. I think he's Jewish. Holy cow, Ben. It's out now. I mean, you might as well live with it. I just thought you always wore.
Next, you'll be telling people. Next, you'll be telling people that I control a space laser and.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know.
I heard.
We don't talk about these things.
I swear to you, you told me that little hat you wore was just too small. It was a gap that you had as a kid, and it was too small. And I believed it. It's okay. Well, Ben, we'll get.
I tried to keep it going as long as I could, Glenn. Right?
Gosh, you know what, Ben? It is what's going on now is as insane as what I just said to you. It's just insane what the mainstream media is now trying to portray. There was a great article. Congratulations on the article from NPR. A great article where they have deemed that you are a great danger now because of what you're building over at the Daily Wire. And they point to you and to us and to Breitbart. And they say that you are affecting millions of people, and they don't know that you're a conservative. They have no idea that the Daily Wire is really a conservative outlet. How can they possibly say something like it's marked at the bottom of every single page of every article? How can they possibly say that? It's insanity.
I mean, it is crazy, but it's perfectly predictable because right now when you watch Joe Biden and the New York Times and the entire media and democratic infrastructure combine to basically say that social media is the problem and needs to be reined in and that social media needs to, quote unquote, cut out misinformation. And by misinformation, they don't actually mean things that are wrong. They just mean stuff they don't like.
Yes.
It's not anything of a surprise. They've been doing this since 2016. So before 2016, I know everybody has a short memory. Before 2016, everybody in the media loved Facebook, right? Because Facebook was the place where Barack Obama won the 2012 election. Mm-hmm. Facebook he had figured out these brilliant strategies. Then Trump wins in 2016. And they've got to find some rationale for why Hillary Clinton, the worst candidate in American history, lost. And it can't be that she's the worst candidate because that would mean she was the worst candidate. It's got to be something else. And so what they come up with is it's Facebook. Facebook allowed Russian dissemination of disinformation. Facebook allowed dissemination of disinformation via the Trump campaign and all this. Now, there was a subtle shift that happened here where the critique went from Russian disinformation, which would be, that actually has a definition. That would be active foreign intervention in an American election via false propaganda, to misinformation, right? They shifted from disinformation, which could be targeted, to misinformation, which now includes anything they don't like.
Correct.
So they will just scrub the Hunter Biden article because that is quote unquote misinformation, even though it's true. And in this NPR article, they rip Daily Wire, not because we report things that aren't true. They admit in the article that we don't report things that aren't true. They quote some sort of quote unquote expert, professor at an Ivy League university, saying that any true fact, quote unquote, stripped of context, can become misinformation, which is to say that if you're conservative and you give context for information in a way that leftists don't like, this now constitutes misinformation. And that's what this entire campaign is about. There's this extraordinarily perverse thing that has happened with regard to how we consume information in the United States. It used to be that you would bookmark a place like Daily Wire or The Blaze and you go directly there. And then because social media is so convenient, people get Daily Wire or The Blaze or Breitbart from their newsfeed on Facebook. And the left noticed that all of the dissemination of information was now centralized in one place. And then they said, okay, well, what if we just now bottleneck that? What if we just strangle in the crib all of these conservative organizations by telling the disseminator of information to just cut off the faucet? And that's what NPR is doing right now. They're trying to reestablish an establishment media monopoly with the help of the Democratic Party. And apparently your taxpayer dollars is NPR. They're trying to do all of that by basically pressuring Facebook into preventing anything they don't like from ever seeing the light of day.
It would be bad if it was coming from the New York Times, but it's coming from NPR. That is an arm of the U.S. government. I mean, that is paid for by the U.S. government. Our tax dollars go to pay for NPR. And it is probably the closest we have to an actual state media outlet. And with everything that the White House has been saying about, we're flagging and, we're hoping that Facebook is going to stop these people who are killing people with their misinformation. They have said this about almost everything. The latest is just COVID. Everything that the right or that liberty lovers or constitutionalists have been talking about, every time since 2008, they have been saying that that's going to get somebody killed. We're just fomenting a revolution or whatever. This is the open door to the end of the First Amendment, and I don't see anybody in outside of conservative circles really talking about this and taking this seriously. This is really dangerous.
Oh, it's super dangerous. And if it were Trump doing it, that this would be an assault on the press. Trump said a mean thing about someone from the press, and it was like, wow, the First Amendment under attack. Now you have the White House deliberately saying that social media should shut down things the White House doesn't like, and the entire press is sucking its thumb in the corner or cheering it on. I mean, there's an article from Kara Swisher, who's just terrible, in the New York Times, and she's been basically every article she writes is about why Facebook should do what she wants Facebook to do. And she had an article about Biden's comments the other day where he said that Facebook was killing people, which, again, is absurd. First of all, it assumes that human beings don't have agency and can't actually do risk assessment for themselves and take a look at the facts themselves. Number two, it assumes that Facebook is purposefully disseminating false information about COVID, which is just a lie. It assumes that they are, in fact, a publisher, not a platform, which is kind of hilarious since the entire leftist support for Facebook is rooted in Section 230, which suggests they're a platform, not a publisher. So she writes in this piece, backing Joe Biden, saying that Facebook is killing people, quote, attempting to stop falsehoods by claiming to offer good information is like using a single sandbag to hold back an impossibly fetid ocean. It's like that when it comes to a range of once anodyne, now divisive issues, from election integrity to critical race theory to whatever, keeping this country in a constant state of twitchy confusion. So now she's giving away the ball game there, right? The idea here is not that the Democrats care about cutting down on quote-unquote COVID misinformation. If they wanted to cut down on COVID misinformation, perhaps they should stop Dr. Fauci from talking, since he's now reversed himself on every major position he ever held, from masking to the efficacy of vaccines without masks to school reopening. But put that aside, she's now broadened it out from COVID to everything. She literally says everything, right? That Facebook should police all the things, because otherwise people could tell lies about things like critical race theory. And by lies, she means the truth, because she's a believer in critical race theory, as most of the members of the left-wing New York Times editorial board are. So it is the great danger to the country that the informational distribution mechanisms are now being leveraged into top-down control by Democrats. Now, listen, I don't think that the heads of Facebook, particularly Zuckerberg, have a congenital interest in doing this. But I also don't know that they have the stones to actually stand up to this effort for long periods of time, which is why I've called on people who listen to my show and people who read Daily Wire to subscribe to Daily Wire and subscribe to The Blaze and subscribe to Fox Nation or anywhere else they get their conservative news, because pretty soon it's going to be the model for informational distribution is going to be completely revised by an authoritarian left.
So the arrogance is usually where people, they overplay their hand. The left overplays their hand all the time. But I feel like they've overplayed their hand for 10 years now, and it doesn't seem to be an overplaying. How do you see this changing at all, Ben? Where are we on this timeline of losing freedom?
So I think that I really believe the future of the country and the only possibility that we stay together as a country is going to not be because of anything we, the conservatives, do, or even anything the radical left does. It's going to be the people in the middle. Do the people in the middle decide that they are going to stand up to this stuff, or do they just go with whoever is the loudest voice and just appease that loud voice? And that includes people who are sort of the moderate liberals. You remember there's that Harper's Weekly letter last year where 150 liberals wrote this piece about how cancel culture was bad. They had their obligatory kind of slaps at Trump. But then they did the cancel culture is bad routine. And the question for them is, are you just trying to keep the Overton window open for yourself, or are you willing to expand that to people who don't actually agree with you? Because if it's only the former, the country's not going to survive. If you say, listen, we, the liberal side, we may agree with leftists on a lot of their utopian goals, but we are not willing to shut down conversation, destroy individual rights, shut down the First Amendment in order to achieve those goals. So maybe we'll get to utopia later, but at least we won't have destroyed the country. If they do that, the country can survive. If they decide to move along with the left because the left has some of the same political priorities, then we will fall apart as a country, because there is no way that the right is just going to sit still for this.
Ben Shapiro, who I have tremendous respect for. I met a kid. He was probably 12 or 13, I think. Met him backstage at CPAC, and I looked at him and I was talking to him, and I said to him, "You remind me of Ben Shapiro. When he was your age, you were. When did you go to college? Like,
I was 16. But if you said that to that kid, I was 16. That kid had some real hard teenage years ahead of him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He does. But you've been a great force. We have about a minute here, Ben. 2 minutes. Tell me the thing that you're most concerned about, and the thing that we can actually make an impact on.
So right now, the thing that I'm most concerned about is the wokeification of corporations, the use of business to cram down particular viewpoints on the rest of the American public inside your business place, threatening you with firing if you don't post the proper black square or the proper gay pride message, like that kind of stuff. If that continues, then we are going to completely bifurcate as a country. And it is an area where we can successfully push back in the same way that a lot of people have pushed back in the educational sphere. All it really requires is for you to politically unionize with some of your friends, because it really is like a very core group of radical leftists who renormalize these institutions by taking advantage of people not wanting to cause controversy or have HR issues. And so if you can be loud and proud on the other side and outnumber those folks, then you really can get your institution to just go back to kind of weapons down, no politics in the workplace, which would be, I think, the best available outcome there.
Any doubt in your mind that the giant corporations are using the Great Reset, or headed that way, and they're using the Marxists as fuel, that they'll eat the Marxists when all is said and done?
I think that they think they'll eat the Marxists, but we'll find out. I mean, it'll be a pitched battle. A lot of the corporations thought, that in the early days of the Russian Revolution, that things would end up well for them. They didn't. A lot of the corporations thought in the early days of the Nazis that things would end up great for them. Not so much. So it turns out that when you get in bed with the government and with people who love government, you shouldn't be surprised when you get screwed. I think a lot of these people think they're in control, but they are not, I think.
Ben Shapiro, a great work at the Daily Wire. Give Jeremy and everybody my best. Thank you for all of the years of service that you've done and what you're working on now to keep us and the rest of the world free. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.